My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called F.A.T.E. From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready and welcome to your fate. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing out there? On today's show, I am bringing you Kieran Stanislaw Mace. He is the host of the podcast called Paranormal Perspectives. He has a new book out called Paranormality, Normalizing the Paranormal. I am super grateful he has decided to come on the show and tell me his incredible story. Stan, welcome to your fate, my friend. How you doing today?
Well, it's amazing to be here. It's really nice to meet you, Christy, and just excited to finally get my story out there. Really, it's been quite a scary few years, and it's a story I've kept to myself for quite some time. So yeah, just happy to be free and let it out into the world.
I can't tell you how grateful I am that you approached me to come on the show to share your story. I feel very honored, and I am super intrigued about your journey. So I always like to start at the very beginning. How did we get here? What is your story? I'm all ears.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It all started when I was a kid, about 5 years old, where I was unfortunately involved in a car accident. This was when I was living in Oxford back in the day, and it was just essentially a full-on collision without going into too much detail. And that's pretty much what started this whole journey. This journey essentially broke my perception of reality. Initially, when I was a kid at that age, I was being introduced to the world of Catholicism. Excuse me, Catholicism, which is very hard to say. But yeah, I was very much told the way the world is and the way to, who to believe and follow, and I still do have a lot of respect for it today. But this experience, I mean, I was rushed to hospital, and I was in quite a bad way, as you would expect. I went through a number of emergency operations just to stabilize my body, and yeah, at some point I encountered this entity that I can't quite explain to this day. I've been trying to do it through my book to try and outline this kind of what I would call like an infinite being. And imagine trying to describe the infinite, really. And that's this thing I kind of met through this out of body experience I had. So
Can I ask a real question?
yeah, of
Would this
course.
be equivalent to were you dead at this time? Were you would this be a near death experience, or were you just unconscious, and you were having a visions or astral projection or something?
Well, yeah, I mean, I find it hard to separate a near death experience and an out of body experience because one tends to be the other depending on the situation, I suppose. But I think you're right. It's more of a near death experience because my body was essentially giving up in this world. At the time, it was giving up, and I found myself in the hospital, and I couldn't understand what was happening at the time because yeah, I was just a 5-year-old kid at the time. I had a few years in this reality, I suppose, so I knew the difference between a dream and this perceived reality. But I found myself standing in the hospital corridor, and my legs previously were broken. Without going into too much detail, I was in a very, very bad way. I physically couldn't walk, but suddenly all the pain had gone. I was standing again, and I was stood in this hospital hallway, and it looked like this reality, the way I'm seeing you now, but it's like the colors weren't quite the colors you see here. Everything was almost like it was made of solid light. That's the best way I can describe it. It was very ethereal, but felt real, but not. It's really hard to explain. And I began to walk down this corridor, and I tried to get the attention of the nurses and the doctors. and they just wouldn't register I was there. And as you can imagine, I'm a little kid, so I was trying to grab at the nurses' skirts or the doctors' tailcoats, and I just couldn't really interact with anything. And yeah, I walked into the different rooms with other children in there because it was a pediatric ward, so there, of course, there are other kids there. And I remember specifically this one kid, I was waving at him, and I felt like he could see me. He looked at me directly, but nothing registered. Like, I began to call out to him. I didn't know who he was, but I tried to shout, are you there? Can you see me? Can you help me? And he didn't register. And I went from room to room, and I was almost memorizing this experience without meaning to. It's like I was taking in every little grain of detail. Like, I could remember the little cracks in the wall and stickers and discarded, I don't know what it was on the ground, boxes. And yeah, going from room to room to room, and yeah, nobody could see me. And I walked and I walked, and I eventually found my way to this opening. And it felt like at this point, it was like I was reaching the edge of time. Um, it's like, not like things were getting dark, but I could feel like it's almost like time was slipping away, and things were just are as they always are. Does that kind of make sense? It's a really weird one to describe. But yeah, in this room was something, and it was waiting for me. And to this day, I don't know what it was. I mean, I don't believe in death specifically as an entity. I don't know if I believe in those kind of things, but something was there inside of this room. And it was like, I remember seeing like a glass door, and through the door was this unassuming room, really. It kind of looked like almost a storage room at first because there were kind of discarded doctor's coats in there and boxes and various kind of trinkets in there. But to the right, I remember specifically a wall completely filled with these holes, and it's like these openings. And I later, after that experience, realized that I was actually in the morgue at the time. But in this room, it was empty, but it felt like it was filled by this large something. It's like I knew it and it knew me. And it was kind of frightening because I felt like it was so old, it had always been there. And I don't know what happened, whether I connected with it or it connected with me. I just don't know, but I just felt like we merged for a moment. And this thing that was so vast, it was almost like I was, uh, embracing a planet even. It's like trying to comprehend the size of something. And I had this download of information where I was being served all of these images. It's like I was looking at different places at different times and looking at different almost planets, I suppose. It's kind of like I could see the stars and galaxies, and one particular place I remember in this journey it took me on, I essentially was flying, and I kind of landed on this walkway, and I landed on this walkway that was, it was kind of near to a train yard, but most of it was this kind of bridge that was over the top of this big beautiful lake. And I didn't recognize it, but when I landed there were people stood in this alleyway, and they were wearing these hoodies, and I think they were kind of teenagers, and it's like they turned around to look at me kind of being there, and it was almost like I gave them a bit of a shock. But again, just like the hospital, this place that I landed was hyper real. I could see all of the details, like the chain link fence, the cracks in the pavement, just specific nuances, and the weirdness of there being this bridge just above the water, and this train yard nearby, a very specific location. And eventually I was served more information. Like, it was just more of this download, and it got faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And eventually I was in a panic. It was too much to kind of comprehend, I suppose. And I just called out for my mum at that point. My mum was there, during the accident. She saw everything that had happened, but I'd been unconscious all that time. I didn't know she was sat there by my side. But I called out for her, and in that instant, I managed to return to my body. And it was a good couple of years late. Sorry, excuse me, a couple of days later, where I began to be more conscious, I suppose, begin to be more aware of what's going on. And I remember realizing that my legs were in casts. I had metal rods through my bones to kind of fuse them together, and one leg was supported upwards, like being hung. My arms were bandaged, and I physically couldn't move. But I had this memory of walking in the hospital, so I assumed at that time, okay, well, it's probably a dream, probably hallucination. And for anyone watching, they're welcome to give alternative explanations, because it could be induced by simply psychological trauma. It could be the medication that I was on at the time that could trigger that experience. That's a consideration. But this thing is, all I know is it felt extremely real, because a few weeks later, when I was doing a bit better, I wasn't kind of connected to the bed anymore. I still had my legs and casts, but I could move around a bit more. And this really sweet nurse came to me, and yeah, she was really fond of me at the time anyway. She did it all she could to help me, bless her. She said, okay, well, do you want to have a change of scenery? And I was like, yeah, jumped at the chance. Didn't know how she would manage that, because I was so heavy to lift up with all my various different pieces attached to me. And yeah, she put me in this wheelchair, and she began to wheel me down the corridor of this hospital. That's when I began to realize that this was in this so-called dream that I had a few nights ago, or excuse me, probably weeks ago at that point. And it began to make me think, well, it's like a deja vu. Like, again, I was quite young, so I still couldn't quite question it fully. I was just like, okay, I've seen this before. Something feels a bit strange here. And as she wheeled me down the corridor, I saw the individual kids that I saw in this dream, but I didn't know at that point, basically. But I was in my physical body, going along this corridor and visiting the hospital for the first time. But yeah, I knew the layout, so I was telling the nurse, "Oh, that's the kid in this room," and "Oh, I know that kid. I'll go left down here, go right down here," and she was just baffled. I remember the look on her face, and she was just trying to just kind of, wave it off. Oh, he's just being a kid, being silly. And we went down the hallway further, and there's like a dropped section where you could go down like another level. And what I then realized was we entered this kind of security section where there's like a security door you had to go through. I had the strangest feeling going there, and it felt like the being that I encountered, this overwhelming feeling of this presence. And just through the window of the door, I managed to look through, and past the security gate was essentially what I would describe as now the morgue that I was in when I met this entity, with the holes on the right hand side, the doctor's coat on the hooks that I remember, the various objects in that room exactly as I saw it. And at that point, my mind was on overload. And so, yeah, that was my first evidence of essentially consciousness existing outside of the body, which kind of broke apart my beliefs before, and kind of, as your kind of podcast kind of is entitled, really, it enlightened me as to the true nature of life, really. And yeah, one last thing to this as well. Another thing that completely blew my mind. About a couple of years later, when I was doing a lot better, could physically walk about, was doing kind of okay. I used to go with my best friend into Oxford, and there's this place called Hinksey Pools, and this big, beautiful outdoor pool. And I was really excited to go there for the first time with my friends. So he thought, okay, let's take a shortcut there, because the traffic gets really bad in Oxford. So we took this walkway just outside the centre of the city, where there are these kind of ways that lead you into the centre, kind of partly through the countryside. The locals call it the Devil's Backbone as well, although I don't know why they call it the Devil's Backbone. But anyway, I followed it through, kind of just following my friend, because I didn't know where I was, because I hadn't been there before. Eventually, I saw it. I reached these steps, and I walked up the steps, and there it was, the train bridge that I saw in that vision a couple of years ago. As I walked further, I saw the walkway that was over the lake, exactly matching where I landed in this vision. And my poor friend had no idea what was going on, because I froze. I was like, I couldn't speak. Like, my legs went wobbly. Like, it's almost like what's the word? Ontological shock. It's just this realization of something greater than yourself, but it completely contradicted my teachings of the past, essentially. And yeah, and that's what started this whole journey of paranormality, because this event opened up a whole world of poltergeist-like activity. This thing that I met at the hospital followed me home, and
Well,
yeah, it's a
let's
big story. So yeah, sorry,
let's
sorry for the long intro there, though, but it's a big
no,
one.
no, I love it. Like that was a great story, great setup, lots of questions, lots of pieces to kind of nibble on there. One of my questions is, the entity that you saw, you said you kept on getting downloads of information.
Yes.
Other than visualizations of planets, maybe cosmos and things of that nature, what other insights was it illuminating you to, like, I don't know, the nature of reality or what we're all doing here? Or was it giving you any kind of indication of anything
Um,
like that?
that's a really, really good question. I feel like a lot of it was rather frustratingly a massive download, but I wasn't allowed to remember upon returning. But it comes out in pieces over my life where I'm suddenly able to do certain things. The other part of it was a realization. Have you ever watched The Truman Show?
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
It's
yes.
a great, great film, amazing
Mm-hmm,
film. There's a
mm-hmm.
particular scene where Truman accidentally sees behind the scenes and they close up
Yes,
the wall. I don't know if you remember that.
yes.
Um, it kind of felt like that. It's almost like, oh, whoops, you weren't supposed to see this. And it's almost like whatever I contacted, or maybe it contacted me, accidentally showed me something more. It's kind of like I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to die yet, but I was almost thrown into this situation where I was almost ready to. But because I kind of peeped behind the scenes, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to show you a bit more. Maybe you can take something back with you. And what I came back with was this strange ability. I overnight became very good at art. As a 5-year-old boy, you wouldn't expect a kid to do much, but I obsessively drew my way out of that hospital because the more I drew, the less physical pain I felt, and the pain that I felt back then I will never forget. Is the worst physical pain you could wish upon any small child. But art gave me power, but through that ability, it thrust me forward. I was years and years and years ahead of kids that age. Out of the blue, I could just draw like anything, and I've been able to do that ever since. And it has saved my life in a few instances where like life has got pretty damn bad, but it's given me the power to kind of heal myself.
That's
And with this
interesting because
thing, yeah, go.
there are other people that I have interviewed that have had near death experiences, out of experiences, and they end up picking up gifts when they come back. They're either psychics, empaths. They get some sort of gift, but your gift is
Mhm.
a gift of creativity, which
Yes,
is the first
yeah,
time I've ever had anybody that said, "Oh, because that is a creative gift." I would say, wouldn't you think? It's not being able to maybe predict the future or tap into somebody's
yeah.
energy, but it is a gift in itself.
Oh, absolutely. And with that gift, as you mentioned, I had abilities of extra awareness,
Mm.
and it's very unwelcome, at least in my culture, from such a young age to have this awareness and this connection. And yeah, from an early age, I could see things. This entity that followed me back home, I could see it for a number of years in my room. And I remember actually specifically, Christy, for the first time. Oh, I hate remembering this image though, but I'm going to do this for the greater good. Really, the first time I actually saw it physically appear, because when I first connected with it, it didn't have a body; it was just infinite. But when I saw it have a physical body and introduce itself to me for the first time, I was in my hospital bed after my major operations, not ready to be released just yet though, but gradually getting better. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and yeah, I was in the ward, and across from me were the other kids. They're asleep. It was dark, and I could see a little nurse's station with like a little light just lit up, and I could see them doing their paperwork. So they couldn't see what was going on with me at the time, and I felt like there was something at the end of my bed, and I looked down, and I felt like I was fixated, like something was pushing my head to look directly this way. And I could see like the top of something dark where my feet were, just above that. There was like this protective bar at the end of this bed, and the top of this head I could see. And I thought, well, maybe one of the kids is just playing a joke. Or but as it rose up, I could see it had dark skin, and it was like gnarled, like burnt wood in a way. It was very kind of, and as it kind of ugh, it's just so horrible to remember. I'm sorry. As it rose up, it had these dark fingers, and they kind of edged over the end of the bed, kind of like this, and out popped two kind of. It sounds like the Conjuring kind of thing, though, but it did literally happen. two little glowing eyes popped up over and just sat like this, never fully standing up though, but edging at the edge of my bed. And I felt like I couldn't move. I felt like I needed to scream. Like I didn't understand what was happening though, but this thing, it kind of looked at me fixated. And it was almost like it was studying me. Like I somehow gained its interest, but I'm not sure what I did or what about me was special. But I knew it was that thing that I connected with, but maybe in a different form. And eventually, like I just remember passing out. And again, I don't discount the possibility of, okay, well, I probably wasn't on a lot of morphine and various other drugs to keep me in a good state. I get that. That may affect the way that you perceive reality, but there are some things that you just know. Does that make sense? There's some things that you just know that you feel. And
I mean,
this old thing followed me home.
I mean, I, I am, I am not a skeptic. I am not cynical. I think that we don't know everything that's going on in our reality. I think that we were not told our history correctly. I think that life is multidimensional. I think it's about more about frequency and vibration and resonance. I think there's malevolent energies. I think there's benevolent energies. I think that when you die, it's a transition, not an ending. So when I hear you speak of things like it could be the morphine, I could have had some sort of psychological, I think that is your residual programming from when you were a
Mm,
kid that this stuff
yeah,
isn't real. That's what I think it is. Because when I
yeah.
listen to your story, you don't sound like you're crazy. You don't sound like you're not a functioning,
Well, my
mentally
friends could argue
sound.
that.
Well, me too, I guess. But like I understand that this story could sound completely nutso to other people who don't dance in the arena that I dance in all the time. But to
Yes.
me, it sounds like yet just another story of someone having either a near death experience, an out of body experience, an astral projection experience where your consciousness is experiencing something that your body is not. And it
Mm,
just backs up my whole premise is that our experience here in the 3D plane, we are literally little souls, consciousness, awareness in this meat suit, walking around, learning on our soul journeys, on our paths. But there's much more going on in our world than what our five senses can pick up. And we only
yeah.
see this much of the, you know, we only see this much. We can only hear this much. We you don't have let me just say this, I'm not one that you need to convince. I completely and totally believe that you had a darker vibrational energy that somehow attached to you. I interview quite a few people that have spiritual attachments or tell me about spiritual attachments and what they can do.
Yeah.
So um that's what I think. But let's get into this darker energy. When you first encountered it, did you know intuitively that this was not of light, that this was of a darker vibration, or did not have
Um,
your highest and greatest good in mind? Like how did you know it was dark and not a being of light?
it's I think, as you alluded to my programming was, okay, do not encounter the paranormal because the paranormal is the big no-no. It's parallel to normal, hence parallel, yeah, paranormality. But really, I only perceived it initially as bad because, like I say, tried to comprehend the infinite. It's in your human limited understanding, your body can only perceive so much, as you say. That in itself is frightening. To try and compute an incomputable
Yeah.
equation is just impossible, and the human body isn't designed or isn't capable of doing that. And that's why I interpreted it as that, because I thought it wanted to do me harm. And truthfully, as I worked through that memory and those emotions over the years, I mean, I kept this secret until my late 30s, Christy. I was too scared to
Oh.
talk about it for fear of judgment, because I've been there was a time where I spent, as an atheist, essentially trying to deny these things could happen. And eventually I began to truly learn and grow. But yeah, like I say, this thing I connected to, it was neither good nor bad. I had no conception of the idea of good and bad, because good and bad is a human thing. That's us putting labels on things that we don't understand to try and make it seem like something we do understand. So this thing, like, I do feel like I've known it before. I wouldn't exactly say it was God. I mean, I don't know myself if I believe in a God yet or not. I'm more towards the side of believing. But this thing, it was like one of many, if that makes sense. It's like one of many out there, and I've known it before. And it could be like a past life thing, I don't know. But
Hmm.
either way, it completely blew off the lid, basically. Like, since then, like, I had to kind of go back to church. And, like, I mean, I love the people that I went to church with. They're so sweet. But to sit down and listen to sermons about worshipping an entity or a deity or whatever you would call it, and I knew there were other things out there, and they taught me that when you die, or at least during the transition, you go to one place or another. I went neither. I went somewhere else, and whether it's like the in between, or to me, I felt like I could describe it as like a liminal space. It's like a waiting room, like at the edge of time. And it's almost like, I don't know, maybe I met the caretaker at the end of life, of this life, maybe. But either way, like, I had to go back to this world, and it's like I did this little video a few days ago. I felt like I needed to get out there, called "The Burden of Knowing," and it's something that a lot of experiencers have, because it's. I tend to say we have three states really. We have believer, non-believer. That could the skeptic could fall in that category, and experiencer. Us poor experiencers don't have a choice. We try to deny we've seen these things, but we've been given something so kind of abruptly there and real and tangible to a certain extent, despite its presence, that you don't really have the luxury of belief one way or another. And that's the thing.
It's
And
undeniable. Yeah, 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 yeah.
exactly, yeah. And I've had to accept it now as an adult. And but also with this, it's given me great abilities, because I've been on this quest the last couple of years to get more confident in the way that I speak, because I've had speech issues through much of my life, really, because of anxiety and a number of kind of motor issues, really. But I've had this story deep down inside, and suddenly one day I thought, I'm ready to tell a story, and this ability is so kind of useful, actually, because I just know how to do things. Like, I'm a graphic designer by day, I just make images. I woke up one day and I knew how to write. So the actual book I've written itself, the book itself is actually evidence of the paranormal before you even read it. So I woke up and just wrote a book in 2 weeks, and I just knew how to write, and it was weird, but it's there.
You
Yeah,
you number one, I'm shocked that it took you into your 30s to feel confident enough to tell your story.
yeah,
Because of the pressure of society, of the, losing your tribe, losing approval, losing all of that. That's not being able to speak your truth is very detrimental probably to your overall well-being, feeling like you were holding on to a secret, feeling
hmm,
feeling like you weren't normal, or that you knew something that nobody else knew. Like, that's very difficult. You also
yeah.
said that this dark entity kind of followed you home, and you were having poltergeist experiences. What what types of things were happening to you all these years that you weren't speaking about?
Yeah, gosh, it's like a what's the expression? A smorgasbord of activity, really. So you got yeah, basically, I'll tell you how it began. When I came back from the hospital, I spent a few weeks still in my cast and crutches, and I woke up in the middle of the night screaming, essentially, because it's PTSD in short. So the body's going through the motions of what's happened, and it takes a good few weeks for that to really fully let out, really.
Yeah.
And that was one part. I'd wake up in the middle of the night crying, and I used to say to my mum, the man in my room, the man in my room's there, and my mum used to just shrug it off, of course, and understandable though, because she could think, well, it could just be a night terror. Night terrors in themselves are quite horrifying, but I knew that the man was in the room, and he'd be there sometimes on and off, and he would look as he did in the hospital. But it's like I didn't see him as bad, but I saw him as it's almost like looking into a black hole. It's like something so vast is sat right there in your room. You're trying to live a normal human life as a little boy, and that was the first kind of sightings of it. Um, I call it a trauma demon. I don't know
Mm.
why, but I want to call it that though, so I'm going to call it that. I would like to make it seem less scary and call it Steve or something though, but it doesn't quite seem appropriate. But yeah, like it seemed to trigger like this poltergeist, and it kind of evolved into whistling. And I remember being sat in my living room and I heard somebody whistling outside, and I thought maybe it's my neighbour nearby. He likes music, he likes whistling along. Maybe it's him. And it was quite loud actually. And I thought, well, why would you whistle that loud in the street? It was almost like ear piercing, but I couldn't see anybody in the street reacting to it, which is very strange. And then it got louder, and then it was inside the house. I heard like whistling in the hallway, and I immediately jumped out of my chair and ran to it, thinking maybe my sister's playing a prank on me because we did mess about back in the day. And yeah, nobody was there in the hallway. I called out to my sister and said, "Are you messing about again?" And she said, "No, no, no." I said, "Are you whistling?" I said, "Well, I don't even know how to whistle." And I thought, "Oh yeah, I forgot." But yeah, like it got louder and louder, and eventually my sister could hear the whistling, and it got louder and louder. And sometimes it would be right beside your ear. And the weirdest thing was when our friends would come over, you'd hear a whistle, and we'd all jump at the same time, and it would be in the room. So 4 or 5 of us could hear it at the same time sometimes. And it didn't
Oh,
feel scary then at that point because almost like it became a character in the house. Like it maybe started off as the dark man in the room just watching and waiting. And it kind of, I don't know whether the dark entity maybe triggered other things happening, maybe, or if it was that thing. I don't know just yet, I suppose. But yeah, like it just got louder and louder. And my mum heard it a few times. It then evolved into this ghostly party. And I was quite an anti-social kid and kind of wanting to be out there, like joining my friends at going to clubs and all that, though. But I'm not really like a clubbing person. Weirdly, like I brought the party home with me. It's the weirdest thing, but yeah, like again, I woke up one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was school the next day, and I was kind of annoyed because I heard this party taking place. I thought, okay, I need to get up early tomorrow to go to school. Like, why don't they just be quiet? So I opened the window to try and hear which neighbour's house it was coming from. And I thought, okay, that sounds strange. It sounds like it's quite close. Maybe it's next door. And I went to like where this vent is between the two houses. I tried to listen in, and nothing was coming from there. Then I realised actually the noise was coming from the middle of the room. And but the noise sounded like laughing. I could hear like music, like very very old music playing. I could hear glasses clinking. It's kind of like people were saying cheers, and it was actually quite jovial. But at the time, I was quite freaked out because I didn't know how to react there, so I just hid under my covers and just hoped it faded off. And yeah, I think the first time it lasted roughly about half an hour. Then I think I was awake for another 2 hours after that because I was so shocked. I was like shaking. And obviously, I went to school the next day very tired, but I couldn't tell anybody about it though because it's just, where do you start? Like, what do you
yeah.
say? But that continued. It lasted for about 3 to 4 years, and it would be roughly about 3 or 4 nights a week I would hear it. So it wasn't completely consistent though, but enough. But weirdly, it got to a point where it was comfort. I actually thought, okay, well, maybe my friends are over. I was woken up in the night sometimes by it though, and it kind of made me feel safe. And then I fell asleep again. It was really bizarre.
Did you ever try to get, I mean, and still this time nobody in your house was aware of the happenings that were going on, and you weren't telling your parents or anything. You were still bearing the burden of this on your own at this time as a kid?
It was mostly myself. My sister did hear a few of the things, but I lived in a single parent household at the time, so my mum, bless her, like she had the world on her shoulders. She was working like 3 jobs at the time, trying to support me and my sister. And I thought the last thing I want to do is to give her something to add on top of the trauma she would have experienced seeing my accident take place. So all I wanted to do is be the best son possible for her and be a good boy who goes to church and just lives that life, that's that expected life. But at the same time, the burden of knowing was there, and we're beginning to experience this thing trickle into our house. So, like I say, my sister experienced it too, and sometimes the party would be in her room.
Wow.
Yeah, very strange.
So at what point did this all stop? What did the occurrences just fade away? Did you get older and it just longer periods of time before things would start happening again? Or how did this evolve or go away, or what happened?
Uh, it escalated.
Oh,
It went on for years and years, and essentially the whole story started when I was about 5 years old, and it wasn't until I think I was 22, I think, when we left that house. So us living in Oxford, we lived in there for many years, and yeah, like it was weird. Like we had I had items. For example, one evening I was in the living room and there was this metal bowl full of these sweets. These like jelly beans. I remember specifically. We did eat healthy food, by the way, just have to say. Um, but yeah, we had a whole bowl full of jelly sweets, like completely piled up, and I sat there, and I don't know what happened, but it was at the end of it, like a day after school, and I mean, full disclosure, at the time I was being quite severely bullied at school because all the kids at school knew there was something a bit odd about me, and I was trying so hard to play normal and just not say anything, but they could feel something was a bit off. So they really focused on me for quite some time. So this could be a psychic kind of event, maybe. So yeah, after a very hard day, I sat down watching, and out of nowhere, the bowl jumped off the table. Took about 3 or 4 centimeters, like enough to like shoot up, but it did it with such a force that the jelly beans shot all over the room,
everyone.
and it was like a mini explosion. Like there was no way I can explain that. I mean, I'm really into my science anyway, so could it be thermodynamics, for example? Like essentially the reduction of temperature causing the metal to pop back into place, maybe. But no, this thing was so much with force. It was like somebody kicked it, and I did think at the time, well, maybe I kicked it with my foot, the table. My foot was nowhere. I mean, to be fair, if I kicked that metal bowl, that would have hurt, and it didn't. But I shot out that room then because it's just the shock of it. You didn't expect it, and I had, gosh, even another thing. I don't think this event was caused by the entity itself, though. But I think the energy of it allowed these things to happen. So my little cat Puss, my best friend since I was a little kid, she was there with me after the trauma of the accident there, so she could really feel it with me. Bless her. And she used to always sleep at the top of my head every night in my bed. And one night, she was tragically struck down by a car. And it's at this point I really hated cars for obvious reasons, really. But she had no chance, bless her. It was like it was night time, and this car was shooting down our road at fast speeds, and so she passed immediately. So my mum brought her indoors, and she switched off the lights though, but she needed for us to have closure to see that she has passed away, to say our goodbyes. So I sat with my little cat Puss for a good half an hour, just having a chat with her, just speaking to her, just saying goodbye. And of course, as you can imagine, we were all heartbroken. And we put her into a box that night, and I went back to my bedroom, just traumatized, just heartbroken. All the words I can describe, I can never really say enough. And I sat in my bed that evening, and I could feel a weight at the bottom of my bed, and I thought something had dropped on my feet, and I felt another weight a bit further up my bed. I thought that's a bit strange, so I sat up a bit to see what was going on, and I could see these indentations going alongside my body one by one as if they were little paw prints. I feel like what I'm telling you sounds like a movie, but I literally experienced these things. And with the memory that I had after the accident, though, I remember everything in such detail. And this image has always stayed in my head of the bed being compressed and decompressed. I could hear purring, but at that point, I didn't question it. I just felt like my friend is here, but I knew
Yeah.
this was going to be my last time with her. And I let her walk up to my shoulders, and eventually I could feel the warmth of her sitting on my head. So I just sat there completely like not moving, didn't question it. And I just thought, I'm safe. I'm with my friend, and but she looked after me so much that even on her last, day of life, really, like as she was crossing over, she wanted to make sure I was okay. Bless her. So I stayed awake for a good 3 hours. So I'm still hearing her purr, feeling the warmth there. It was like a very physical. There's a very physical weight to my head. And eventually I passed out. I was just too tired, and I woke up the next morning, and she was gone for good, and I felt actually okay.
Yeah.
I actually felt like the pain was a little less, and yeah, there's just something about this house where just the most weirdest things would happen. And there's so much more to this story. Like, it does escalate, but long story short, to answer your question about when it ended, a friend of mine who's a good friend now, she's a medium. She helped me to understand that I'm a medium. And I'm very cautious about saying that, I admit, because I get worried about the judgment, though, but I'm a medium.
I was gonna say the same. I was gonna say I don't know if I was gonna call you a medium, but I was definitely going to say you're somebody that has spidey senses and is able to pick up energies that other people can't pick up. So I don't know what
Oh,
other gifts you
totally.
have, but you can certainly uh see past the veil. The veil is very thin with you, my friend. But go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I make the joke because I don't like to say I'm a medium because I don't feel like I'm a full medium. I'm a different kind of medium. So I tend to say I'm a small, not a medium. That's what I tend to say in my terrible joke. So I'm a small, if anything. But either way, whatever it is, it's helped me a lot in life to understand maybe people a bit better. And I've said things to people that's really freaked them out, saying exactly the right thing at the right time. But yeah, like I say, yeah, the end times for this house basically ended up in this almighty fight between my friend who identified what I am, and she met me for the first time then, saying like, okay, well, please don't think I'm crazy or anything, but there's something in your house, and I know that you know about it, and if you can just trust me, I'd like to walk up to your room with you. I need to explain this to you. And instinctively, I knew that I could trust her because I knew she was my mum's friend, but I never met her before. And as you can imagine, like for many years, I kept this a big secret for a long time. Like my mum only knew like a microscopic amount of information about this thing that was happening. So this lady, yeah, went to my room, and yeah, this came after the last final event where I arrived at my bedroom and it had turned to night in the daytime. I could see this distortion at the middle of my room where this particular unit was. And this lady identified exactly where this funny distortion was. For a start, she said, actually, look, a lot of this activity tends to focus around this part of your room. She says, I believe there's a vortex there. And I thought, vortex don't exist. What are you talking about? This is like a fantasy. Like, I was beginning to question then, but I thought, but I can feel it. I can see, I've seen it literally myself. I've seen this almost like a black hole in my room. And I don't know whether that was the entry point this thing used to kind of enter this reality, or if this was just like a big buildup of energy in that space, but she knew exactly where it was. My mum didn't know about it, so how could she know? Because I certainly didn't tell anybody. And then she described the trauma demon. She told me, okay, look, this is what you've been going through. Like, if you can trust me, I'm going to deal with this thing now. And she described to me what it looked like, the gnarled, dark skin, the glowing eyes. I mean, stereotypical horror kind of thing, but these things are real, whatever they are. And she asked me to walk away. She says, look, okay, I need to separate you two now. Like, it's time to move on now because this thing's been latching onto you for so many years. It's making you feel horrible. And, you know, you need to, like, get on with your life now, really. And, it's, you know, you had this experience when you were 5. You know, you're a young man now. This is time for you to live. So this is why mediums are so amazing. They just do the right thing. They don't really do it for coin. I mean, the real mediums don't do it for coin. They just do it because it's the right thing to do. So she literally saved my life then. So I walked away, and my mum was with her to record the experience. And this is now kind of third, you know, not first-hand experience. So this is what I was told. So she saw the entity in my room. It was jumping from box to box between the different objects in my room, and it was throwing items across, like pen lids and just little items across. It was shouting abuse at her, and I won't swear on your show anyway, but just saying really horrible things about her, and
You
it
can
was
swear. It's totally
ferocious.
okay. I'm so
Okay,
fine with
I'm trying to be
swearing.
polite.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay. Um, but yeah, it was really quite bitter and quite nasty, and I don't know if that means it's a nasty thing. It felt very powerless at that point because I think for the first time in a long time, it was beginning to experience what it's like to work within limits and have its power taken away. But yeah, in the end, like after this big fight, she managed to boot this thing and scare this thing away. Essentially, like she completely sapped it of all energy, separated me from it, and I don't know the process behind all that. I don't know how that's possible. And I kind of went back, not expecting it to work still, but I remember returning back to my room and I just started shaking like uncontrollably. Like I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was having a seizure at the time. I just couldn't control my body. It's like almost was letting out something like an energy of sorts. And she said to me, like, okay, I want you to do a few things over the next few days for you to just heal and get through it. And all I can say to you from that point, I was so much happier. Like, for a while, I was just the subject of bullies for years and years, and I distrusted people tremendously for a long time. I kept myself to myself. I do believe that this thing affected the way that people interacted with me. It made them angry, vicious. I've had teachers smash tables in front of me out of nowhere, unprovoked. Like really weird behavior. And this thing after, like, I felt as light as a feather, really. Like I just felt like a normal person, and well, as normal as I could be, really. And I realized this is what it feels like, at least to be human in this life. And from that point, I started to get in contact with old friends that I had. I just started to live a normal life. I went. I think I was starting university at the time, so I kind of went back into my studies and got my degree and just started my life really, truly. And something I'll never forget. And since then, I've been slowly educating people about the possibility of there being other things, like saying to people it's okay to believe, to not believe. Like, we can all meet each other at the same point. Like, if you're a skeptic, you have every right to be skeptical if you haven't seen these things directly. And it's the same if you're a believer. Like, you have every right to believe things, even if you haven't experienced things. We can be friends and we can learn from each other to see each other's perspectives. So I suppose that's what leads me into the whole Paranormal Perspectives podcast. It's me letting out that story, but also showing other people it's okay to talk about these things, but also we can be friends and disagree. And like, once we can understand the limits of our perceptions, we can then be humble enough to know that we can be open to learn from the universe and truly evolve with each other, rather than all this tribalistic mindset of I believe this, you believe that, so therefore we're enemies. No, 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 no. It seemed
Well,
like
I think
uh,
that's a lot of just
yeah,
religious programming. I mean, a lot of
it
the
is.
reasons
Unfortunately, it is.
it
Yes.
is, it's religious programming. I truly believe that the main religions of this world are here to control. They are not here to allow us to learn about our inner world, consciousness. Um, it's fear based. They fill you with fear. Anything that
Yeah.
is not of, whatever religion you're in is evil. It's not of God. You're going to go to hell. They scare you with the hell. They scare you with the you're a sinner and you're unworthy. There's a lot of that which prevents people from even entertaining the thought that there could be interdimensional beings, that there could be aliens, that there could be other ways in which we can perceive our reality. It shuts that down
Yeah.
entirely. And so
And that's enlightenment, isn't it?
some I mean, I was an atheist, most of my life, and it was only through a health crisis that I ended up getting out of my own way in a lot of ways and expanding my mind. And this podcast that I do has very much been a school for me because there really isn't anything that I don't discuss, from shamanism to energy healing to the paranormal to aliens. Like, I am a wide open book. If you have a story to tell or something to teach me, I'm all ears. But I will say that most of what I have learned, it makes more sense than the shit we've been taught since we get here about what life is. Like,
Hmm.
I totally think that you picked up a spiritual attachment when you were having a near death experience or an out of body experience. It went home with you, you probably were born a medium. You were born with some sort of gift, but when you transcended your consciousness to your out of body realm and you interacted with this other entity, I think it stuck to you. And I think that it fed off your energy for decades and scared you and probably made you feel weird. And you were probably even had maybe negative self talk that you didn't even understand because
Hmm.
why are they talking? Why is, oh, I'm this, I'm that, probably telling you weren't worthy or you weren't good or you were ugly, you were this or no one likes you or on and on and on and on. because it was feeding off your energy. And it breaks my heart that you had to spend that many years of your life in solitude holding on to this secret and, not being tortured, but certainly being mentally degraded over the years by not understanding why this was happening to you or where it was coming from. And then you sprinkle in all your Catholicism programming, which probably put a lot of fear into you on top of it. Um, so thank God you had a medium. She sounds like a very powerful medium that was able to pick up
Oh, yes.
and figure out what was happening to you so you could break that connection and start living your life again. So now that you're out, you have your podcast, you've written a book, it's about to launch, it's a whole new paradigm. How how are you being received now by your family, your friends? Do you still go to church? Like what is your life now that you're kind of out of the closet with your paranormal?
Um, well, good question. No one's ever asked me that before, so yeah, thank you for asking that. Well, right now, I mean, I'm at the point of, well, as you were saying, enlightenment. This is why I love your podcast. It's the route, it's the journey of enlightenment. So I'm no longer a Catholic. I haven't been for a number of years now because I couldn't do it. Like, I've still met many lovely Catholics in my life, but it's something I can't sit with knowing what I know now. And it doesn't mean what they believe is wrong. I think everybody has a right to believe, but now I'm just of the mind of I'm a spiritualist. So I'm neither part of any religion because the religions don't make sense for me now. I do feel like
They
a certain amount of them are for control, but then again, it kind of falls into the idea of the word paranormal. As you say, when you have a canned philosophy, it's essentially a set of parameters set to keep you within a certain pen, and anything beyond that pen is what's called paranormal, or previously it would be called magic. But the word paranormal itself, I believe, is a misnomer, and this is why I kind of mentioned this in my book. Like, I don't believe the paranormal exists in the way that we think it does. It's essentially what I would say is, it could be future science. It's something we will eventually understand. But really, these words that we put on things are designed to limit our journey. Because the moment I jumped over that fence into the realm of paranormal, I realized that the word paranormal is just not the right word to use, and I began to learn a lot more about life, about understanding why I feel things the way that I do, why I get information out of nowhere at exactly the right time, why that some people act in a certain way when they're going through those experiences and being more forgiving of them. It's made me a much kinder, more understanding person. And yeah, I'm a bit of a stressy person, but it's because my nerves are on overload all the time because I'm constantly receiving data. So I'm doing my best to kind of manage that overload. But I'm a much better person for it now. And this story doesn't exactly mean that everyone else should do the same as me and go on the same journey. It doesn't mean that. But I've at least been honest with myself and I suppose be more towards the side of accepting who and what I am. And
I mean,
yeah,
I think at the end of the day, it was a gift, even though it was you suffered a lot through it. At
oh
the end,
yes,
you have now put yourself on a much more enlightened path. You're awake. You're conscious. You have a better understanding of this 3D plane that we're all living in. Um, I'm I'm excited. Like, how long have you had your podcast?
um, just over a year. Actually, it's
Yeah.
relatively new, and but it's so cool because a long time ago I used to be so scared to speak publicly. Like I used to get the shivers. It used to make me ill. Like at university, every year we had to do this big presentation, like an hour long, and I used to be a nightmare. I physically couldn't speak. It was like there's somebody with a hand over my mouth. And through this podcast, it's opened me up, and I'm a much better communicator now because what's behind this mouth and this body is a very good communicator, but the body can't match up with the level of vibration that's kind of coming through. But I've now, through this experience, have taught my body to be able to process things in a certain way where I can get this information out now. So that's fine tuning that. But I've got to meet some amazing people because I know in your recent episode you spoke to Brad Burkholder. He's such
Yes.
a dude. I love him. He's such a nice guy, and his story is fascinating as well. And
Yes.
I met so many other people. I don't know. Yeah, Malcolm Robinson. A few episodes ago, he's like a well-known ufologist and paranormal investigator slash reporter. He's again such a nice guy, and you realize that these people that have had the most profound experiences are so down to earth, so kind, and so eager just to share their experiences. And it's made me go, okay, of all the people that I met in my early years that were so horrible to me, not mainly because of their fault, it's just whatever they were reacting to. And I believe back then, okay, I didn't want to connect with people, so people out there must be horrible. Through this
Mm-mm.
podcast, and as I've got older, I've realized actually there's so many lovely people out there that you can learn from. This whole part of this whole spiritual renaissance, I suppose we're going through at the moment, where more people out there seem to be waking up and questioning the old
Yes.
systems, and whether it be our perceptions of the reasons for war, for this tribalistic mindset of I'm from this country, you're from this country. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all part of this
Yeah.
great experience. So I do feel like this podcast is part of many other podcasts that are following that wave of rediscovery. It's like I think of a quote by is it Socrates? All forms of learning is essentially rediscovery,
Yeah.
and I do believe like yeah, we're born into this life, and we kind of start from zero. We don't know what we previously were. So we're deliberately given no tools to find our way back to what we previously were as part of this journey. So I do feel like all of these learnings that we're going through at the moment as a planet is us rediscovering what we already previously knew, and that's where the power comes in. Like you begin to realize actually, like I think we're all quite powerful people, and it's up to us how we use that energy. And I've gone from being this little scared kid, too scared to talk, bullies just wailing on him, so scared to deal with the horrible dreams that I was having at the time and all the horrible things that just made me just shut up and be quiet and hide myself away, to now being this person that's not afraid to speak in public, just even just about anything, quite frankly, but to talk about the strange experience that I've had, but to also trust other people and how they receive me because my family's been really nice about it. I've had a couple of people who've been a bit weird about it, like, and they're interesting experiences actually because when you say these things, some people get really defensive very quickly about it.
Yes.
Now I know the full picture. It's not about me; it's about them. And
It's
when
exactly
when they're
right.
given that
It's
shock,
yes.
they really do. Oh, my head is. We can't say this. You must be a liar. You must be this. And
Yeah.
I've always said to them, "You're welcome to have a chat with me one day, but I'm not really an evangelist. I'm not here to tell you what to believe because it's not my place to do that. But I'm here just to say, like, there is another option out there." It's like when we went to school back in the UK. Like we had religious education (RE), and you're only ever taught about Christianity or Catholicism and maybe a bit of Judaism, and that's it. That's not religious education, is it? What about Buddhism, Hinduism? What about
Yes.
actually technically Buddhism isn't really religion, is it? It's more of a philosophy though. But what about all
Well,
these other
it's
beliefs? What about non-beliefs? What about, for example, atheism? Like I know atheism isn't really directly a non-belief, but what about the concept of saying, okay, you present me with X amount of concepts, I don't believe in those concepts just yet. That's okay too. And I feel like a lot of these so-called education formats are really indoctrinations into a preferred system.
they
Um,
are.
and
They are.
it may suit some people, and that's okay. It may suit some people, but some people are so limited.
Yeah.
Sorry, Christy.
No, no, it's fine. I mean, I talk a lot about religion and I hate to I'm not really afraid. I'm a little different. Like I could not care less other people's opinion of like it just I'm like Teflon when it comes to that. It does not matter to me. Like whatever you think about me, that's my business, bro. You do your thing. It's your journey, whatever. I don't care. Having said that, I'm not here to offend people either by my own
Of course,
talk about religion. I personally don't think religion was brought here to bring us peace, harmony, love, joy. I think it's brought us tribalism, the fact that they don't see females as equals. I grew up at a church where women couldn't
yeah.
lead
Mm.
song, they couldn't be, they weren't
Oh, that's so
preachers.
sad. Yeah,
I
yeah, I
mean,
do remember that.
this resurgence of, this patriarchal society that women need to go back into the kitchens is like such a load of shit. Men have done a terrible job of setting up our societies. They're barbaric. They are so easily led around by their dipsticks. It's ridiculous. And feminine needs to be coming back to the forefront and leveling the playing field with what's happening within the global consciousness. That's my opinion. But I
Yeah,
mean,
I
at the end
agree.
of the day, there's an awful lot of fear out there. Humans are very fearful little buggers. We are. It's our go-to emotion. Once we don't understand something, it's fear.
Fear.
That's
Hmm.
it's not
Yeah.
curiosity. It's not anything. It's fear, instant. So, through my years of my own awakening and understanding, I really have lost a lot of my fear. I don't really fear anything anymore. I certainly don't fear death. My soul is going to leave my body, and I'm going to go on and have other lives. I think that we come back to this 3D plane and live many lives. One of the things that I was going to suggest, if you are ever interviewing anybody on your show that is a past life regressionist or a
Mm.
hypnotherapist, I would be really, really interested to see how you would do in that scenario where you were under hypnosis. I bet you would learn a lot more about this entity, about how you're connected, about why
Yeah.
and like, have you learned anything? Have you done anything like that yet?
Um, I haven't been hypnotized before. I wouldn't be surprised if I was a bit tricky too, because it's hard to keep my attention half the time. But I have spoken to, I believe his name's Steve Burgess, a couple of episodes ago,
I
and
love Steve. You
he's
should
he's
do a
such he's
session
such a
with
guy.
him.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I can imagine he's quite a busy guy, but I'd love to, if I can afford to, I'd love to, because I do have past life memories, and I'd love to get an understanding. But I do know that I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
I do have memories of um. So I don't know if we're going over time here anyway. So please shut me up if you want
I,
to.
I, I
But
don't I don't really I don't really have a clock on it, but we'll wrap it up here in a few. Go ahead.
yeah, I can keep going as long as you want. Anyway, I've got plenty of energy. But yes, so much of my life I've had this fear of ships and deep water, and I've had this almost like a video in my head of watching the porthole of a ship going down and like seeing my crewmates go down as well. But I've had this memory in my head, and every time I've gone near a ship, I've had this horrible pulling feeling of like just dying basically. And yeah, from like a young age, my mum couldn't understand why I was so frightened of ships, and I used to just freak out. I just needed to get out of there, and I'd love to understand what that memory was, though, because I have this memory of it's almost like fighting wars. And that's I've always had this thing. It's like another part mission of my life is the dissolution of the concept of war, really. And in this way of me going down the ship, I believe I was in an army. Potentially, it might be the Americas. I believe, from like the way I saw the uniforms, but I remember just being in this fight and thinking like, this is how I spent my life, and going down with it. And I have another memory of a time like I describe it as the city in the sands of like living in this place where I had like a stone bed and like a wooden headrest. I remember sleeping on specifically, and I remember having like a gold band here. I remember having darker skin and like very specific kind of features. And when I look at myself today, I see myself as being different to what the way I look now. As this, I look like just an English dude, but I see myself as I used to be a long time ago. As this, I don't know. I used to live in a place. It's called Egypt now, but I don't think it's even Egypt. It's a place around there, but it's before even Egypt existed as a country. Like a place a long time ago where essentially I had to fight battles then. And I remember like running into battle with like a club in my hand, and my life ending with a club at the back of the head, essentially. And again, me reflecting upon my life, going, "What was all that for?" And ultimately, that's what leads to this life. And this my sort of my little finale, I suppose. It's basically adding to my kind of belief in like educating people enough to fight against the concept of war
Yeah.
by helping people to enlighten, linked into my family lineage in this life. So my granddad's Stan, called Stanislav, as in like my middle name is his name. This is why I say his name in this life on my book, because I want to bring it forward to remind people of his legacy and to educate the future. So my granddad Stan was in Treblinka, during the Holocaust. And he was obviously from Poland, and for whatever reason, he was captured by the, yeah, you know what's at the time. I don't want to say their names even
Yeah.
today, even if, but yeah, so those guys, and he lived a horrible, horrible few months, and he survived by convincing them that he was a hairdresser. He had no skills in hairdressing. But he convinced them that he was a barber and a hairdresser, so he kind of cut the general's hair at the time and tried to be as useful as he could just to keep him and his family alive. But the things he still saw then obviously left him with trauma. Like back in the day, they didn't really have a word for it. Obviously, we know that as PTSD now. But yeah, long story short, he was eventually rescued at the end of the war, and he was offered a life in either America or Oxford in the UK. So he moved over to the UK and started this new life here. And yeah, obviously it's very hard to go back to normal life after seeing what you've seen. And bless him, like he was so grateful for the life that he had here in Oxford. Eventually, he met my grandmother, and she's from Sardinia as well. So she happened to be in Oxford at the time, and they fell in love and started a life here. But yeah, he wanted to give back to his community, and they became foster parents to kids for their in between homes. Essentially, they looked after kids for like weeks to months to years at a time, until they found their long-term families, and they had their own kids, so their own kids were living amongst all the other foster kids, and in a way, obviously it helped them to pay the bills a little bit though. But he worked at the local factory as well. So it's like a BMW factory now in Cowley, and yeah, he worked there, just living his life, giving back to the community, and he didn't live to an old age because eventually war did get the better of him because of the trauma that he suffered. It put his body through the ringer.
Yeah.
And so he didn't live to an old age, but he was able to grow this wonderful, loving family. And I feel like I've I was given his name as a middle name, and I feel like in a way like it's incumbent on me now to bring the
Yeah.
education of the past of hate and that way of being into the future. To go, okay, well, from the deepest, darkest depths of history can be brought into the future, and to be, you can do well and do good with it, really. So me kind of doing a book and living my own life and being a kinder,
Yes.
hopefully more kind of a better example, and now in the future I feel like I'm doing, or at least undoing, some of what he had been through. If that kind of makes sense. So I feel like, it's part of my duty as well to carry his name forward. So
Yes. 100. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he was a
I
very, very smart man.
I love that, and I love that you are up, carrying on his legacy in your own life in many ways. I think that's a beautiful tribute. And I do think our past lives say a lot about our current lives. If I've learned anything on this show,
Hmm.
I think that if more people understood what and who they were in their previous incarnations here, their lives would make so much more sense.
Yeah,
And that is
yeah,
something, along with the paranormal, along with the magical mystical lives that we really do have. I mean, if we were to make that normal, that when we get here we should kind of figure out what our sole purpose is, it will illuminate you to so many things as to what you're supposed to be doing and who you are in this incarnation. So, which is a gift, it really is.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, Stan, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm so glad that you are now in a spot in your life when you are bringing your story to the surface and telling it with confidence and with pride, and know that there's so many light workers out there now, and I do think there is this great mass awakening happening. But you know you are a light worker. You are here to help awaken the masses. I i am so grateful that I was able to share your story. I hope that it impacts people and allows them to open their minds and understand we are more than we think we are. We are.
That's exactly
How,
the mission. No, yeah, thank
yeah,
you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure.
come back anytime. I mean, where can people, I'll put the link to your podcast in the show notes. And then is your book available yet? Is it out? Is it on Amazon?
It's
What's that going, what's going on there?
It's available for pre-order at the moment. It's out, I believe, March next year. So I don't know when this recording will go out though, but I'm guessing this will be probably much closer to that time from when we're recording it now. But yeah, I think you're one of the first I've been speaking to about the story as well. And like I said, I just can't believe I'm here actually saying all this. Like, it's such a privilege to be obviously to be able to speak to people such as yourself, who again, an equal light worker, I would say that you are.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
doing the doing the job that you do, like we do find each other in the end. I do find it fascinating. Like, regardless of technology or not, we do tend to gravitate to each other with a certain mission. So, like
It's
say, like
energy. It's our resonance. It's
exactly, yeah,
energy.
it's energy.
Everything's
Yes,
energy. And there are no accidents or coincidences or anything like, I truly believe I've met so many people through doing this show that are light workers like you that I just have an immediate connection with. I keep in contact with a lot of my guests because we just end up having such a mutual love for each other because we're just
yes.
our energy. We
But
like
we all
each
help each
other's
other, don't we?
energy. Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. It's a great community to be in, I think, because I think it's super non-judgmental. I think it is super loving and accepting community. It really is. And there's no fear of being exactly who you want to be, I think, in
Yeah.
this community.
It's like enlightenment is the love vibration. Is the way I
Yes.
describe it really, because enlightenment, like love, transcends everything. It's not love in the way that we used to describe it in this life though, but love is like the highest vibration. It transcends all perceptions of all good, all bad.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think the future is all going to be very much about love. Love is the strongest emotion that we have in our human
Of
makeup.
course.
And we are love. We go back to love. And we need to just start standing in that and living that more on this plane for sure. So I am so glad you're out there doing what you're doing. I would love to thank you for coming on the show and telling us your story. I hope that you have nothing but success moving forward, my friend.
No, I appreciate that. And thank you, Christy, and same to you too. But I think you already are successful as you are anyway. I think you are doing what you're meant to be doing.
I keep hearing that.
I
Lots, lots
think you
of
know
people.
that.
I mean, I kind of do now. Like I feel pretty, you know, pretty confident that I am walking where I'm supposed to be walking right now. We'll see what
100%. Yeah,
happens,
when I saw you, yeah, when I saw you speaking to Brad, I mean, I watched the full episode anyway, but I just had an instinct that I could trust you. I think with you doing what you're doing, it's again enlightening. It's so hard for me to say that word, enlightening. So, but anyway, with enlightenment, like in your podcast, this is kind of what you're doing. Really, you're just opening people up and spreading that vibration. So it's more than a podcast, just simply going, okay, this is entertaining, this is spooky. You're actually giving people something to take away and aid in their evolution. So it's like I say, when I watched that video, I just
Yeah.
had an instinct. Like my spirit guide is kind of like my assistant of sorts. They just give me a bit of a nudge in that direction. Like, just speak to that person. Okay, I'll trust you. I'll trust you.
Well,
And
I
it
can't,
just works out in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I was very excited when you reached out to me and I kind of did a little research on you. I was like, you
Yeah,
were a perfect
I
fit
couldn't
for the
believe it really.
show.
Yeah, I thought
Huh?
it would take a while to check me out because obviously I'm not famous. I'm not anybody in particularly like important, but I appreciate being invited.
I mean, I'm not so much about putting famous people on. I am interested in putting people on that A are light workers and B have a story to tell. And I as much as you want to make the paranormal normal, so do I. Like I think that we should
Yeah, good
have
on
these
you.
discussions and make it more of mainstream conversation. These are real things that are happening. And whether people want to believe it, not believe it, that's
Yes.
not everybody's going to awaken in this lifetime. It's just not the way it works. But the people that are open-minded enough to understand that there's so much more going on, they will start picking up on these little morsels we're dropping for them. They will start changing their own belief systems. And my goal on this podcast is to raise the consciousness of this planet. That is the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, good on you.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Come back anytime. I love to talk paranormal. I love to talk all of spirituality. If you put another book out,
I'd love
whatever,
to.
you always have a spot here on the show, Stan. So keep me posted on all things.
I appreciate it. No, I've only told you like a tiny little percentage of the full story, and there's a lot more to come, really, but it'll take forever. But
Well, you know
yeah, no,
what?
thank you for trusting me.
We'll of course we'll do a part two next year before your book comes out, and we'll do a little recap, and we'll figure out what's been going on in your own journey again. I'm sure your journey is still unfolding, so you're gonna have lots more on deck for you. So it's exciting. Keep me posted. And with that, guys, thank you, Stan, for coming on the Fate podcast. We will see you all next week on From Atheism to Enlightenment. Journey well, everyone. Bye. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate, From Atheism to Enlightenment. Well, what'd you think about Kieran Stanislaw Mace? I believed him. I completely and totally think that through his accident, he had a near death or out of body experience, and he came across an entity when he was in another dimension, for lack of a better word, and it attached to his energy. And he ended up spending years dealing with a spiritual attachment that he didn't understand, and that probably in many ways psychologically, I don't know if tortured is the right word, but certainly caused suffering. Didn't allow him ever to feel good, safe, secure, normal, you know. So that part of the story made me sad for him, but the fact that now he is completely conscious and aware and understands much more about the nature of our reality, how very much different it is from what we are taught. And now he's finally out there telling his story and finally coming out and having the courage to tell people what happened to him, what he went through all those years. And I hope he reaches as many people as he can, and he tells his story and does great things to help raise the consciousness of this planet like we do. Um, I really hope he comes back on the show. I think he will. I'm going to keep in contact with him. I just liked his energy, and I feel like he's super authentic. He's a good soul, and I wish him nothing but the best. Follow his show. It's called Paranormal Perspectives. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. And feel free to subscribe to his channel. Subscribe, make sure you're subscribed to mine. But subscribe to his YouTube channel and check it out. I feel like he's going to be bringing on some really interesting people with some great stories that will expand your mind and help you understand that there's so much more to us than what we think, for sure. His book is going to be coming out, I think it's next year, next March, he said. So I don't have a link to his book, but I think that what I'll do is just have him back on right before his book releases so we can make sure and promote it. I mean, I'm sure it's um scary at first to have these kind of experiences. I don't know how I would react. Like, I'm sure I would be scared at first as well, but I also know that I would be very curious and intrigued by the whole thing, and I would like to think that my fear would be overcome with a level of curiosity and a level of trying to learn from whatever was happening to me, whether it be another entity or being able to see in a different dimension or whatever. Um, the more and more I am open to all these different concepts, the more and more I kind of am starting to feel like that is more normal than not normal, and that we're just distracted. I'm not living in 3D land much anymore. Like, I'm kind of left mainstream life in a lot of ways. Like, I don't listen to the news. I don't really watch TV. I don't watch movies. I am checked out from the outrage, the fear, the catastrophes that they're showing you on the media every single day. Their molded, sculpted narrative, which that's what it is, folks. A molded, sculpted narrative handpicked by people that don't care about you to keep us in fear, keep us divided, keep us from understanding more about who we are, what the nature of reality is, what truly lies beneath. So when you unplug from all of that and you take your power back and you start owning your own thoughts again and stop listening to other people dictate your opinion, you start having a really different version of life. And I highly recommend it. You will become more of your authentic version of who you're supposed to be, man. So that's my tip of the day. Unplug, turn it off, stop scrolling, and figure out who the fuck you are. All right. Well, that's about all I got for this show. I hope you enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think he's a great guy. I've got more stuff coming up for you. All right, guys. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm on Instagram at F.A.T.E podcast. Follow the show. Please like, subscribe, share, reach out to me if you have a story that you want to tell, if you've had an experience, if you're a light worker. I'd love to hear your story. From atheism to enlightenment is my email at Gmail. Anyways, that rhymes. With that, I will see you next week on Fate, from atheism to enlightenment. And welcome to your fate, everyone. Journey well. Bye.